Divine Doctor, Chapter 8, Feng Manor's Messenger. Upon hearing these words, everyone's eyes shone with a light of curiosity. Yao Shi stumbled forward a few steps while trembling and holding on to Feng Yu Heng's hand. "Mother," she glanced at Yao Shi. It seemed like she remembered something. Looking again at the carriage, sure enough, the curtain parted to let out an elderly woman. The elderly woman may appear to be wearing the same clothes as a normal person, but the materials for the clothes were not ordinary. At least for the villagers present, even if they were to save for their entire lives, they could never afford to wear it. Feng Yu Heng searched her memories again. The year of Yao Shi's marriage. Her marriage dowry was Granny Sun. When Yao Shi and her children were exiled to Mountain Village, she had been kept back at the manor. Without giving her a chance to think deeply on it, the elderly woman took a few steps to reach Yao Shi. She knelt down plainly. "Madam, you've suffered many hardships." Yao Shi just felt that it was all so surreal. She had not been knelt down to, even once in the past 3 years. Nor had she come into contact with anyone related to the Feng family. In her opinion, the Feng Manor had set her and her children up to die, and then forgotten about them. And yet, here before her, appeared Granny Sun. Her first thought was actually, was Granny also chased out of the manor? Tears flowed from Granny Sun's old eyes. No, I haven't, madame. This old servant has come to pick you up with young miss and young master to return to the manor." Return to the manor? Yao Shi was not the only one shocked. Feng Yu Heng and Feng Zurui were temporarily stunned. Feng Zurui was the first to speak. Return to what manor? Yao Shi quickly followed up with her own question. "Granny, what is happening? Why did you come to Xiping village?" Granny Sun grabbed Yao Shi's hand and spoke emotionally while trembling. "Madam, young miss, and young master, the 9th prince has achieved victory. The lord and lady have called for you to return to prepare for young miss's marriage. Madame and young miss, please get on the carriage and return to the manor." The sudden news was truly shocking. It shocked the three, mother and children, to the point of speechlessness. "Mother, be careful!" Feng Yu Heng swiftly moved to support Yao Shi, who nearly fell down. Fighting the waves of emotions from her memories, she did her utmost to remain calm. Doing her best to maintain an appearance of calmness, she spoke. "This is very sudden. The 3 of us, mother and children, have not made any preparations to leave Granny. Please wait a short while for us to pack our things, then we can depart." Granny Sun wiped the corners of her eyes and bowed respectfully to Feng Yu Heng. "The 9th prince will return to the capital in a few days. Please be quick, madam and young miss." Inside the shaking carriage, Feng Yu Heng was exhausted. As the horse carriage had been moving constantly all night, she closed her eyes and leaned against the carriage wall to get some rest. However, not a single word spoken by Yao Shi and Granny Sun escaped her ears. "This time this old woman will take responsibility for bringing madame, young miss, and young master back. But if you ask for the truth, it was done with the blessing of the 9th prince." "But," Yao Shi hesitated briefly, "Heng has been exiled in the village for so many years. I fear that the marriage arrangement is no longer valid." It is valid. Granny Sun became happy upon mentioning the subject. "If it was no longer valid, how could the manor send this old servant to bring you back? You do not know, but this old servant has spent these years dreaming of the day madam could return." Granny Sun choked back tears while also wiped her tears. Feng Yu Heng opened her eyes and asked Granny Swin, "Since it's still valid, why did the Feng Manor still dare to exile us, mother and children, to the mountain village?" Granny Swin froze and blankly stared at Feng Yu Heng. Yao Shi quickly grasped her hand and explained, "Granny does not know that these years in the mountains have been very bitter. Fortunately, Heng, this girl, had read some medical books with her grandfather before. If not for her, the three of us would not have survived. Survive we did, but the child has become more and more cold." Granny Swin nodded, looking at Feng Yu Heng again. Was it really just cold? Why did she feel that there was a sharp look in her eyes? In any case, the current young miss is better than 3 years ago. Feng Manor is a ruthless place. If she were still the same easy-to-manipulate girl, they would not survive till the marriage. This old servant also does not know. Recalling Feng Yu Heng's previous question, Granny Swin spoke. At the time, this old servant felt it was odd. Since young miss has been engaged to the prince since she was little, why was the Feng family so bold? Now that I think about it, perhaps the Feng family did not think the 9th prince would have so much influence. What influence does he have? Feng Yu Heng was very interested in the original owner's fiancé. The young miss may not know this, but 2 years ago the 9th prince was appointed Grand Marshal by the Emperor and led a campaign to the northwest border. Recently he received a great victory in the northwest. Now the 9th prince will be back in the capital in a few days. So it was like that. Feng Yu Heng did not ask anything further and closed her eyes again. Analyzing the situation from the surface, it appears that the Feng family is afraid that the 9th prince would come looking to collect his debts. Only this caused the family to rush to bring them back. But thinking deeper, she furrowed her brows. It seems the matter wasn't really that simple. The distance from the northwest border of the capital was great. Even riding at full gallop day and night, it would take 20 days. Feng Yu Heng was not familiar with the geography of Shun Dynasty, but she was still able to understand basic directions. The carriage had been traveling for close to 5 days or so when she felt something was wrong. The path to the capital was directly north, but why had they suddenly turned south? Chapter 9. A Narrow Escape. Yao Shi and Feng Zirui were sitting in the back, while Granny Swin sat beside them. Fearing they would overheat, she continued to slowly cool them with a fan. Feng Yu Heng was trusting of Granny Swin, but did not have any faith in the one driving the carriage, especially seeing how he had struck Xu Shi in Xiping village. She was certain he was not a good person. "Granny, stay in the carriage. I am going to get some air outside." Waving to Granny Swin, Feng Yu Heng pushed aside the curtain and left the carriage. She arrived next to the driver and sat down. The driver did not think she would come out and froze briefly. Displaying an unnatural smile, he greeted her. "Second miss?" This was the Feng Manor's hierarchy. Above her was another elder sister, Feng Chengyu. It was exactly this person that had caused Yao Shi's fall from grace as the clan matriarch, and Cheng Shi's subsequent rise. Nowadays, she was the true matriarch. "Uncle, it must be very tiring to drive all day and night." Her body sliding back slightly, she leaned against the carriage. She reached her right arm into her left sleeve and gently caressed the phoenix-shaped birthmark. "What is the second miss talking about? This is the old servant's job." The driver pulled on the reins, not noticing the odd tone Feng Yu Heng took. The carriage drove even faster. Feng Yu Heng picked at her lips. "Feng Manor's servants truly are loyal." "Naturally," the driver shared a few laughs without any additional understanding. A 12-year-old girl was absolutely incapable of arousing any suspicions. However, many things often will not develop in the expected manner, like Feng Yu Heng, who was overlooked by the driver. "It's a shame, though," she quietly said. "It's a shame the loyal servant doesn't know the way. If we continue this way, we won't reach the capital in this lifetime." The driver only just realized and turned to look at Feng Yu Heng. The originally earnest face began to distort. Her eyes shone with a sharp light. "Second miss, what do you mean by those words?" Feng Yu Heng looked towards her opposition. Their eyes stared at one another. The imposing manner of this 12-year-old girl did not at all lose to the almost 40-year-old man. "I said, this road definitely does not lead to the capital city." The driver pulled on the reins again. "Then, second miss, where are we going?" "How would I know?" She leaned against the carriage once more. "If you want to kill people to erase witnesses, you must be clean and efficient. You must also make sure that you haven't been found out before you make your move. The formidable Feng Manor does not lack in experts. Their mistake was excessively underestimating the three of us, mother and children." While speaking, she laughed self-mockingly. "Speaking of which, it really is laughable. Even for my death, that so-called father is unwilling to bestow upon me a better opponent." "You!" The driver's face was thoroughly ferocious, although his cover had been blown and target alerted, but he continued to believe that there was no way a 12-year-old girl could bring out any devious tricks. Without any doubt, she was just bluffing. It was really causing him to get frustrated. In the worst-case scenario, he could just kill off the entire carriage of people right now, and it wouldn't be too big of a deal. He was raised as Feng family's guard. Upon arriving, he received left Prime Minister Feng Jingyuan's dark will. Yao Shi, along with her children, absolutely could not be allowed to return to the capital. Kill them off on the way back. With regards to the marriage contract with the 9th prince, it was granted by the imperial family for the eldest daughter of the first wife. Currently, that title belonged to the eldest miss, Feng Chenyu. Yao Shi was removed from her position for this reason. The driver coldly laughed. There was no reason to remain hidden any longer. He just remained a little curious as to why a little girl would be so clearly bold. "When did you figure it out?" he began to ask, yet he already held a dagger in his hand. As soon as he heard Feng Yu Heng's answer, he would attack. Feng Yu Heng also laughed coldly, but it sounded dark and somber. "If you treated Su Shi a little less roughly, I might not have become so suspicious." "Just that?" "Not just." She pointed at his hands. "Your right hand has thick calluses. It's clear that you're someone who is proficient with weapons. If you were a driver, the callus would be on your index finger." Having said those words, Feng Yu Heng did not wait for the driver to act. Instead, she took the initiative. She had already retrieved a palm-sized tranquilizer gun from her storage space. She had kept it hidden in her sleeve. The driver felt out of sorts from this unexpected attack. Feng Yu Heng swiftly leapt up, without warning, swung for his neck. The tip caught his neck, and blood sprayed onto her sleeve and the carriage curtain, causing those inside to scream. Feng Yu Heng gripped the reins and kicked the driver's body off the carriage. Then with a loud "Hiya!" the carriage turned and headed for the capital. The entire journey, the four had been running for their lives. Now they were running for the capital. Now Feng Yu Heng was very much looking forward to seeing the lord of the Feng Manor. She really wanted to see this vicious father. What exactly did this horrible person look like? Chapter 10. Unexpectedly, it's him. 20 days later, the capital was in sight. Feng Yu Heng finally relaxed. Lands controlled by the imperial family would be much safer. The carriage stopped outside the gates of the capital. Yao Shi pushed open the curtain and looked outside, letting out a sound of lament. Feng Yu Heng brushed some dust off her body and went to console her. "Mother, don't worry, we will be arriving at the Feng Manor shortly. We must tell venerable father about what happened with the driver. Let father help us find those responsible." Feng Zurui balled up his hands into little fists. "Father will definitely severely punish the bad guys." Granny Swin nodded her head. "Since such a servant was sent from the manor, the master will definitely investigate thoroughly." Yao Shi, however, waved her hand. "We can't do that. We just got back. So we shouldn't cause trouble for your father. For us to be able to return safely to the manor is already considered good fortune. As for the driver, we'll say he fell and died along the way. The rest should remain unmentioned. If the driver was truly a burglar, then we are very fortunate. I worry that the one that cannot tolerate us is the driver's master." Feng Yu Heng's words caused Yao Shi and Granny Swin to furrow their brows. In reality, everyone had considered the possibilities, but only Feng Yu Heng spoke when she wanted. Granny Swin, as a servant, was filled with joy that her family's miss would be able to live better lives. And though Yao Shi did not have high hopes for the Feng Manor, she still hoped that their future would be safe and secure. The matter regarding the driver was a thorn in their side. To avoid trouble, they did not bring it up further. They would need to deceive themselves first if they wanted to deceive the enemy. "Mother, remember that there will be times when you've endured enough, and that you can't remain calm and collected. Retreating might not always lead to sunnier skies." Feng Yu Heng regretted that Yao Shi's temperament must change, but she knew that she could not rush it. Currently, she raised her eyes and looked along the public road. All she saw was a group of people raising a commotion. They had come along the same path. In the midst of the commoners was a party that slowly made its way toward the city gates. There was definitely a reason for the commoners to have gathered. Feng Yu Heng's carriage quickly became stuck in the group of people. From inside the city, the sound of a horn announcing victory sounded. Another large group of people departed the city along the path. When the two groups collided, the road cleared as people moved to the sides. There were some who carried flower baskets, some that carried food, some that carried drinking cups, and some that carried children who held tears in their eyes. There were also some that knelt and kowtowed towards the procession. Feng Yu Heng looked towards the procession, but the view from the back was blocked. A flowery carriage became the center of a protective formation. The carriage was surrounded on all sides by a navy blue screen. 4 officers stationed themselves at the corner of the carriage and were escorting it with solemn faces. The commoners continued to kowtow towards the carriage. She heard countless people say, "The 9th Prince has returned victorious from war. To have done it 2 years faster than what was ordered by the Emperor. He is truly our god of war. Long live His Highness, the 9th Prince." Everyone in the area knelt in unison. Feng Yu Heng's carriage suddenly stuck out, but not a single person paid them any heed. The 9th Prince had returned victorious, so the people were busy singing his praises and celebrating. There were countless people who offered wine to the passing officers. Yet, not a single officer accepted. The common people were accustomed to this. They knew that the military regulations were particularly strict. Feng Yu Heng found that throughout this mighty procession, no signs of celebration could be found. Even the faces of the vanguard were murky. However, the 9th Prince had won the war. That much was fact. She had confirmed it many times along the way. All the inns were buzzing with this news. The good news was plastered everywhere. The happy event did not look very happy. There must be a reason for it. She looked again towards the carriage. This time her eyes inspected it even more carefully. A lucky coincidence occurred. A breeze slightly blew the curtain away from the window as the carriage was passing by. Inside, there was a face adorned with a golden mask that covered from the forehead to below the nose. Between the eyebrows, a slight gap allowed a faint hint of purple to be seen. Feng Yu Heng subconsciously stood up on her carriage. She stared fixedly at the window, as the wind would blow the curtain open, then let it fall back closed. Again and again, the wind continued. Her hand held her belly, her breathing no longer calm. The three in the carriage also came out. Seeing her like this, they thought it was a normal reaction and did not inquire further. But when Feng Yu Heng had seen the sliver of purple, her heart became tumultuous. It was him!